You know, people always see the end of a story. They see the decision, the revenge, the outcome. But they never see the road that leads there. They don't see the blood in your hands, the nights you cried silently, the sacrifices you made that nobody ever thanked you for. Let me take you back. Let me tell you where it all started. Before I continue the story, kindly like this story, subscribe and tell us where you listening from. I wasn't born into wealth. No silver spoon. No inheritance waiting for me. What I had was strength in my arms, grit in my teeth, and a heart foolish enough to love too much. When my wife died during childbirth, I was left with one thing, a baby boy who would become my world. My only son. I raised him alone. And when I say, alone, I mean it. Nobody came knocking with help. No relatives stepping in. Friends drifted away. People whispered behind my back, he won't last. He'll hand the boy over to someone else. But I didn't. I kept him. I fought for him. You see, raising a child alone is war. A war against hunger, against exhaustion, against shame. I worked 3 jobs just to keep him fed. I'd come home late at night, aching, clothes soaked in sweat, and still find the strength to rock him to sleep. Sometimes, my stomach growled so loud I thought it would wake him, but I didn't eat. He ate. Always him first. When school came, I sold my wedding ring, the last memory of the woman I loved, just to pay his first term's tuition. I still remember that moment. Standing in the pawn shop, watching the ring disappear into someone else's hand. My heart broke, but I told myself, this isn't a loss. It's an investment. My boy will have a future. And oh, how he grew. Bright. Sharp. Handsome. Every time I looked at him, I told myself all the sleepless nights, all the calluses on my palms, they were worth it. He'd be different. He'd rise above where I had fallen. He was my pride. My proof to the world that I had not wasted my life. But let me tell you something about pride, it blinds you. You get so caught up in the dream that you ignore the little cracks in reality. I ignored the way he started looking down on my old shoes. I ignored the way his friends laughed at the way I spoke, the way I dressed, the old pickup truck I drove. I told myself, he's young. He'll grow out of it. He knows who kept him alive. He'll never forget. I lied to myself. Still, I worked. Still, I gave. Every milestone of his life was carved out of my flesh. His graduation gown. Paid for by nights I went without sleep. His university tuition. Paid for by the house repairs I never did, the broken roof that leaked rainwater onto my bed. His first car. Paid for by the back pain that never left me after all the heavy lifting jobs I took. And yet, I never complained. Why would I? He was my son. My only son. The one who would carry my name forward. The one who would stand by me when old age bent my back and dimmed my eyes. That was what I believed. So when he told me he had found the woman he wanted to marry, my heart nearly burst with joy. I didn't care that her family was wealthy, influential, way above our class. I didn't care about their whispers or their judgmental glances. All I cared about was seeing my boy happy. All I wanted was to sit proudly in that wedding, to smile as the man I raised stepped into his new life. I prepared for that day like it was a sacred event. I bought a new suit, nothing fancy, but clean, decent. I polished my shoes until they shone like mirrors. I even practiced my smile in the bathroom mirror, worried that my teeth, worn from years of neglect, might shame him. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was worried, but because I was excited. My son was finally becoming a man. He would finally see, maybe, all that I had done for him. Maybe he would look at me that day and think, this is my father. The man who gave me everything. The man I am proud of. I didn't know then that pride has a way of setting you up for heartbreak. If only I had known. If only I had seen it coming. If only I had realized that the day I thought would crown all my sacrifices would instead bury them under humiliation. But I didn't know. All I knew was this: tomorrow was my son's wedding. Tomorrow, I would walk into that hall as the man who raised him alone, and I would finally take my rightful place, not in wealth, not in status, but in honor. At least, that's what I believed. The morning of the wedding, I woke up before the sun. My hands trembled as I buttoned my shirt, not because it was cold but because my heart was alive with pride. I told myself, this is it. This is the day I have waited for. The day every sacrifice finds meaning. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie, smiling at my reflection. I wasn't a rich man. I wasn't a man with titles or power. But I was a father. And in that moment, that felt like enough. The drive to the venue was quiet. My old car rattled like it always did, but today, I didn't care. Let it rattle. Let the world laugh. I had a seat waiting for me at the front of that hall. A seat reserved for me, the father of the groom. When I arrived, the venue stunned me. Marble floors. Chandeliers glittering like stars. People in tailored suits and sparkling gowns. Wealth everywhere, flaunted like a crown. I walked in, feeling eyes on me, sharp, judging. But I kept my head high. I whispered to myself, ignore them. Today is not about wealth. Today is about your son. I searched for my seat, eager to sit before the ceremony began. That's when I saw it. My name card. Only, it wasn't my name. The words written on that little white card cut deeper than any blade I had ever known. Instead of father of the groom, instead of my name with respect, it said something else. Something cruel. Something designed to mock me. I won't repeat the exact words here. No, they don't deserve to be repeated. But I'll tell you this, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misspelling. It was a deliberate insult. A label that reduced me from a father to a joke. At first, I thought maybe it was an accident. Maybe some mix-up. But then, I heard it. The laughter. Soft at first. Then louder. Rippling across the tables like fire spreading through dry grass. The bride's relatives covering their mouths, their jeweled fingers pointing. The guests shaking their heads, whispering, smirking. And there, in the middle of it all, stood my son. My boy. My only son. Do you know what he did? Nothing. He didn't stand up. He didn't defend me. He didn't tear that card apart and shout, "This is my father. Show him respect." No. He lowered his eyes. He pretended not to see. And when the laughter grew, I swear, I saw his lips curve, just slightly. A nervous smile. A coward smile. In that moment, something inside me broke. I stood there, my face burning, my chest heavy. Every sacrifice I had made flashed before my eyes, the nights without food, the days without sleep, the dreams I had buried so he could rise. All of it. And this was how it was repaid. I could have shouted. I could have flipped the table, silenced the hall, demanded respect. But no. That would have given them what they wanted. They wanted me angry. They wanted me broken. Instead, I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and walked away. Slowly. Quietly. With dignity. Do you know what's worse than being laughed at? It's not being laughed at. It's giving people nothing to laugh at. Walking away in silence, letting them choke on their own mockery. I stepped out of that glittering hall, the sound of laughter chasing me like shadows. But once I reached the street, the air felt different. Heavy. My head spun. My heart thundered. On the drive home, my hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My son's face haunted me. Not the face of a boy I raised, but the face of a man who let me be humiliated. When I reached home, I didn't cry. Not one tear. The time for tears was long past. I sat in my chair. Silence pressing in on me. I stared at the walls of the house I had built, the same house I had dreamed of gifting him as a wedding present. A home filled with memories, sweat, and sacrifice. That's when clarity came to me. Like a knife cutting through fog. They wanted to laugh at me. They wanted to treat me like I was nothing. Fine. Let them laugh. But I would make sure the laughter didn't last long. That night, I picked up my phone. My voice was steady, my heart cold as ice. "Hello," I said to the man on the other end. "This is, protagonist's name. I need to change my will. Immediately." And just like that, the game changed. When I made that call to my lawyer, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Cold, sharp peace. See, anger burns too quickly. You shout, you break things, you throw fists. And then it's gone, leaving only ashes and regret. But silence is different. Silence is patient. Silence sharpens itself until it becomes a blade no one sees coming. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair, lights off, staring into the dark, replaying the wedding in my head. The card with that filthy name. The laughter. My son's cowardly smile. I asked myself, why did I sacrifice everything? For this? For a boy who let me be treated like dirt? For a man who chose silence when I needed his voice? No. That chapter ended at the wedding hall. By dawn, my mind was clear. I knew exactly what I would do. The lawyer came to my house the next day. A serious man, all gray suit and glasses, carrying folders that smelled like ink and secrets. He sat at my kitchen table, waiting for me to speak. "I want to rewrite my will," I said. My voice didn't shake. "To whom will the estate be transferred?" he asked, pen poised over paper. I looked out the window where my maid was hanging clothes on the line. She was a quiet girl, respectful, humble. She'd worked in this house for years, never once crossing her boundaries, never once forgetting to call me sir. When I was sick, she made me soup. When I was tired, she'd bring me tea without me asking. She treated me with more dignity than my own son did. "Her," I said, pointing through the window. The lawyer blinked. "Your maid?" "Yes. Everything I own. Every coin, every stick of furniture, every nail in this house. If I die today, she inherits it all." He hesitated, adjusting his glasses. "And your son?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "My son has already received his inheritance. My sweat, my blood, my years. He wasted it. He gets nothing." The lawyer scribbled on his paper, face neutral, but I saw the flicker of shock in his eyes. When the documents were ready, I signed them without hesitation. My hand didn't tremble. My heart didn't resist. For the first time, I felt free. But I wasn't finished. Oh, no. The will was just the beginning. You see, my son thought this house would be his wedding gift. He had plans to move his new wife in, to decorate it, to call it his own. But this house, every brick of it, was built by my sacrifices. And if he couldn't respect the man who built it, he didn't deserve to live in it. So I sold it. Yes, you heard me. I sold my own house. The home where I raised him. The roof that sheltered him. The walls that carried our memories. I called a government office, and within weeks, the papers were signed. The house was gone. Just like that. And the money? I didn't keep a single coin. No. I sent it to a hospital across town, where a young boy lay dying. A child I had never met. A child whose parents couldn't afford the surgery that would save his life. I walked into that hospital, asked no questions, gave no explanations. I handed them the money, told them to make sure the boy lived. And then I left. Do you see the beauty of it? I didn't just take away my son's inheritance, I turned it into someone else's miracle. While he and his wife were sipping champagne in their golden hall, laughing at my humiliation, a stranger's child was given a second chance at life. That, my friends, is how you make revenge clean. Precise. Poetic. When I returned home, my empty home now, I sat down again in that same chair, but this time I smiled. Because I knew what was coming. The day would come when my son and his bride would show up at my door. Smiling, proud, expecting their gift, their inheritance, their future handed neatly to them. And on that day, oh, on that day, they would learn the truth. They would see that while they mocked me, I was dismantling everything they thought was theirs. Piece by piece. Quietly. Efficiently. And when they begged, because I knew they would beg, I would not need to shout. I would not need to curse. No. My silence would be enough. I knew the day would come. When you strip people of what they think they deserve, they always come back. Not out of love. Not out of guilt. But out of desperation. And sure enough, a few weeks after the wedding, I heard a knock at my door. Not a polite knock. No, this one was loud, impatient, almost entitled. I didn't rush to answer. I let them knock again. And again. Until finally, I opened the door. There they stood. My son and his new wife. Dressed well, smelling of money and perfume, faces glowing with the arrogance of youth. "Father," my son said, his voice rehearsed, his smile forced. "We've come for the keys." The keys. No greeting. No warmth. No, "How are you?" or "Are you eating well?" Just straight to business. Straight to what they thought belonged to them. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Keys to what?" He blinked. Laughed nervously. "The house, of course. The one you promised. We're ready to move in." His wife smirked beside him, her manicured fingers tugging at his sleeve like she already owned everything in sight. I let a long silence hang between us, the kind that grows heavy, suffocating. Then, slowly, I said the words that cut deeper than any blade. "The house is gone." Their smiles faltered. My son frowned. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "I sold it," I said simply. The bride gasped, covering her mouth. My son shook his head as if he hadn't heard me right. You sold it? To who?" "To the government," I said, my voice calm, steady. "It's no longer mine. Or yours." For a moment, they both just stared at me, disbelief painted across their faces. Then the storm began. "Father, how could you?" my son shouted, his voice rising. "That was supposed to be our home. You knew we were counting on it. After everything I've done, after bringing you into this family." I cut him off with a single look. A cold, sharp look that made his words die in his throat. "You brought me into nothing," I said quietly. "And you gave me nothing. I raised you. Alone. I gave you food when I starved. I gave you education when I couldn't afford shoes. I gave you everything. And at your wedding, you let them laugh at me. You let them mock me. You let me walk out with my head bowed." His wife stepped forward then, her voice shrill, dripping with contempt. "We didn't mean it. It was just a joke. You're being dramatic. We're family. Families forgive." I laughed. A low, bitter laugh. "Family?" I repeated. "Family doesn't humiliate you in front of strangers. Family doesn't turn their back when you're being torn apart. Blood means nothing without respect." My son's anger cracked then, crumbling into panic. His voice softened, desperate now. "Please, Father. Don't do this. Don't leave us with nothing. We can fix this. We can make it right." Tears welled in his eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No warmth. Just the cold truth between us. You already left me with nothing, I said. That day, in that hall, you left me. He dropped to his knees. Imagine that, the same man who couldn't stand up for me in front of his wife's family was now kneeling at my door, begging. His wife tugged at his arm, furious, embarrassed. Get up. This is pathetic, she hissed. But he stayed there, hands clasped, tears spilling down his cheeks. Please, Father. Don't turn your back on me. Don't, his voice broke. Don't abandon me. And do you know what I did? Nothing. I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I didn't even slam the door. I just stood there, watching. Silent. Cold. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest answer. Finally, when the weight of that silence crushed them, they stumbled away. My son's sobs echoing down the street, his wife's heels clattering angrily on the pavement. I closed the door behind them, my heart steady, my hands calm. And in that silence, I found peace. People think revenge is about destruction. They imagine fire, chaos, the guilty left bleeding in the ashes. But let me tell you something, real revenge doesn't scream. It doesn't burn. Real revenge is quiet. Precise. It rebuilds the world so that those who mocked you are forced to live in the ruins of their own arrogance. After my son and his bride left my doorstep that day, broken and humiliated, I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel triumph either. What I felt was clarity. I had already decided long before, my blood would not inherit my name. Respect would. Dignity would. Gratitude would. And so, life moved on. The first time I saw my maid after I signed over everything to her, she was scrubbing the kitchen floor. She didn't know yet. To her, she was still just a servant in this house, paid a modest wage, expected to work quietly in the background. But I watched her carefully. Every day. I watched the way she folded my clothes, the way she brought me tea, the way she never once raised her voice or rolled her eyes. Even when no one was watching, she gave respect freely. When the lawyer finally came to deliver the news, her face went pale. She stared at the papers in disbelief, her hands trembling. Sir, this can't be right, she whispered. You've left everything, to me. Yes, I said. Everything. The house, the savings, the land. It's all yours now. Tears filled her eyes. Not greedy tears, not hungry ones. No. Tears of gratitude. Tears of someone who had never expected such a gift. Why me? She asked. Because you respected me, I said simply. When others laughed, you stood silent. When others ignored me, you listened. You treated me like a man, not a burden. And that is worth more than blood. She fell to her knees then, clutching my hands, sobbing words of thanks I didn't need to hear. For the first time in years, I felt seen. But that wasn't the only seed I planted. Remember the money from the house I sold? The money my son thought would secure his future. That money became the lifeline for a child I had never met. I didn't visit often, but I checked with the hospital quietly. The boy had survived. The surgery was successful. A little boy who once lay dying now laughed again, chasing toy cars down sterile hallways, his parents weeping with relief. They never knew my name. They didn't need to. All they knew was that a stranger had given their son life again. And in that moment, I realized something important: my legacy didn't have to be blood. It didn't have to be my son. My legacy could live in gratitude, in lives touched, in respect earned. That, to me, was more powerful than any inheritance. As for my son, I heard whispers, of course. The bride's family was furious. They called him a fool, a disappointment. Without the house, without the inheritance, their glittering welcome grew cold. I heard he and his wife moved into a cramped apartment. No chandeliers. No marble floors. Just peeling paint and leaky pipes. She resented him for it. The same woman who laughed at me now sneered at him, asking why he hadn't fought harder for the fortune he believed was his. And my son? He began to shrink. The arrogance drained from his face. The pride in his shoulders sagged. He became a man who understood too late the weight of betrayal. I didn't need to watch him suffer. Life was doing it for me. One evening, as I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, I thought about everything. The laughter in the wedding hall. The humiliation. The tears at my door. And the silence I had given in return. I asked myself, was it worth it? All of this? And the answer came easily. Yes. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't living as a man begging for his son's approval. I was living as a man who had chosen dignity over blood. The maid. No, not the maid anymore, but the woman who now owned this house, stood in the doorway that night, smiling shyly, asking if I needed anything. The boy in the hospital, miles away, laughed as his parents tucked him into bed, alive because of the money I had given. And me? I finally had peace. So here's the truth I want you to take away from my story. Respect matters more than blood. Gratitude matters more than wealth. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is not to destroy, but to give your legacy to those who deserve it, while letting those who betrayed you live with the knowledge of what they lost. My son thought he would inherit my world. Instead, he inherited silence. And silence, my friends, is a heavier burden than any curse. And that's how my story ends. But now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you forgive, or would you stay silent like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'll be reading every one. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who loves a good revenge story. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, the next one will be even more thrilling. Until then, stay sharp, stay strong, and never forget, silence can be the loudest revenge.